And we're here. This is third try.
Try number 3.
I know it's module 2 for you guys. It's try number 3 for us because we are just full of shenanigans in the studio this afternoon.
All kinds of crazy stuff is happening.
We keep confusing our poor producer by messing around with our mics. Mostly the mics at this point that are causing all the trouble.
Yes. So. Windows Server Administration Fundamentals. I'm Thomas Willingham.
Christopher Chapman. Module 2.
Module 2, Managing Windows Server.
Awesome.
We're here to discuss more about server administration.
Yep. I think we just dive right in.
Okay. Back to our skills and objectives. Skills, managing devices and device drivers. Domain description, understand device drivers. Managing services, understand services. Using the control panel, understanding remote access.
I like that. Oh, well, that's not quite the right objective domain description. Man, I've had a number of typos in these decks that I'm going to have to change that clearly I missed an editorial pass. I like that in that slide, though, the second one, understanding services, they just put it in there like it's just another thing in the course.
It's a small thing. Just like understand some services.
Just services, the one thing that servers are here to provide, all of the things they do. So we're not going to quite get into that level of detail, but there's a lot to cover in this module. We've got a lot of material. So.
There is. Let us continue on.
Shall we? We shall.
Server configuration. So when you first install a server, you have to give it a name, give it an IP address, give it a time zone. These questions are asked in a wizard format to provide this information. Once the information's already done and the computer is set up, you can go into Control Panel to manage these settings after it's already set up. Mm-hmm. System security, network and internet, hardware, programs, user counts, appearance, clock, language, and region, ease of access. These are the areas that you can configure on the server.
Mm-hmm. Look, right into a demo.
Right into a demo. Christopher.
I'm already on the screen. So I'm actually going to give you some bonus material right now because I've already configured this server. This is a server that I've been running for a long time. It is 2008 because we were, this course is 2008 R2 focused because of the content of the course. But I've already configured this server, and I've told the server not to bring up the initial configuration tasks screen window when I launch the server. So what you're going to learn is how to do that after the fact. OOBE, initial configuration tasks.
Yeah, nice.
Something new for everybody. And you can actually see on this screen, do not show this window at logon. I've turned it off because I've already done it. And you can see everything here, activate Windows, done, time zone, done. All these things have already been set up. In fact, you're getting secret squirrel information about my network. But it's public, so it's okay. Updating the server. Notice, check for updates 12/28/2013. Not a good example of how to manage a server in an enterprise environment. But this is at my house, so it's not a big deal that I've gone 5 months without an update. So that's 08R2. That screen, the initial configuration tasks screen, is not the same experience in Windows Server 2012 R2.
It is different now.
It is.
We also, our next thing is to demo the control panel.
Oh, I suppose I can do that. There are a couple of different ways to get to control panel. The most obvious one, start control panel.
And remember, this is 2008 R2. This is not 2012.
We'll look at both.
Newer.
We'll look at both for the control panel because the interface is considerably different in 2012. So here's the control panel. We've got it set by category. We can also do large icons or small icons. And this is just control of everything. I tend to do small icons. I'm not sure why it was categorical, except that I've never used it because I usually change this right away. All the options for this server outside of services that it's running. This is for the server itself. And now we'll take a look at this in a 2012 environment. Here's Windows Server 2012. Now to get to control panel, I sort of have a start button like I used to. This is different. This whole start menu is different. Now this is not the latest updated version. You notice I don't have a power button on my start screen. But the control panel, it's just another start menu item. And here it is. The control panel itself works and looks the same. Just getting to it is a little different.
You can also, if you're on that start menu, type in the word control.
Yep. That's something I've actually gotten used to in 2012. So I hit start, type control.
And then that basically narrows down or searches on that item.
And I can as well, just for fun, so everybody knows, right click, and I can pin to taskbar. Now my control panel is right here.
There you go. So numerous ways to access
Yep.
that system configuration task area.
There are indeed.
So talking about configuring the server, talking about configuring the system, you probably don't want everybody doing that. You don't want everybody having access to certain components or certain configuration changes to the system. So there's something called user account control. User account control, or UAC, started in Windows Vista, is included with Server 2008 and later to help prevent unauthorized changes. If you are logged in as administrator, UAC comes up and requests permission, says, hey, you're trying to do something that modifies the system. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes or no. If you're logged in as a standard user, it requests administrative password. So it says, hey, you're trying to do something administratively. Are you sure you want to perform this action? Now, managing a server, you usually, on a day-to-day basis, use the account with least administrative security that you can run on a day-to-day basis. If I work on a server, you typically don't work on a server, but if I'm on a server as a user and I do something inappropriate, you access a website that maybe has malware on it or something, if I have least privilege, it's going to have minimal impact on the system. If on a day-to-day basis I run as the administrator and I do something that has malware or corrupts the server, that can have access to the whole server and cause issues and problems. So UAC is a system that helps overcome those issues.
Well, and it was built kind of with two things in mind. One is that, and the other is to allow people to do more. Ironically, given that it's a security feature, UAC was built to cordon off certain things but open up access to others that people could, in fact, change themselves if they wanted to. And also on the slide, you'll notice on the bottom, before performing actions that could potentially affect your computer's operation or that change settings that affect other users, if you're logged in as an administrator, UAC asks you for permission. So even if you have the rights to do what you're trying to do,
still verify.
UAC is going to say, are you sure? So it is a nice feature. Took a little while to get all the bugs ironed out, but it's pretty awesome these days.
And now we have a demo for user account control.
Oh, all right. Well, let's do a demo. Let's go here, and we don't want this one. We want this one. And I'm already in control panel, which is very handy. User accounts. Change user account control settings. Choose when to be notified about changes to your computer. You can turn it off. Right here, notify me only when programs try to make changes to my computer. Don't let me know when I make changes. So it's not going to ask me. It's not going to do that verification if I'm an administrator. I can change this. Notify me only when programs try to make changes to my computer. Do not dim my desktop. And then, never, really, I'm just telling UAC to go off at this point. I can go up here and just always let me know when something's changing.
So some people will say, oh, UAC is a bit chatty. It asks me to verify everything. So this gives you some control over how UAC integrates in your environment.
It does. And let's take a look at the same thing. I should find a faster way to switch. User accounts. User account control settings. Pretty much the same. So 2008, 2012, same exact settings for user account control. That's it. That's all I was going to show you.
There you go. Now, so we've talked about user account control. We've talked about initial configuration settings. Now let's talk about, and we've talked about control panel. Now let's talk about system settings. So important configuration settings that you would perform for server administration. And these are within control panel. So getting information about your system, changing your computer name, changing the work group or domain that the computer belongs to, accessing device manager, which is how you manage devices on your system, enable or disable remote settings, remote access, configuring your startup and recovery options. So if your system fails, when your system restarts, what do you want it to do? Do you want it to dump a memory core file? How do you want that to play out? And then you can configure performance settings and manage those. So now we have a demo for system settings. It's pretty demo heavy. It's exciting. There's lots to do here.
I'm going to sit here and look confused and see if anybody figures it out. System settings. Right click, properties.
There you go.
On computer. This is where your tabs are. Device manager, remote settings, advanced system settings. You can change your name and domain membership right here.
That was a different slide.
Well, but it's all part of system settings.
It is.
And you just saw something that did change at one point, which is I get this screen when I right click and go to properties. I used to just get this. And here I can make changes to these different settings. Remote desktop, advanced, where I can set startup and recovery options. You saw that. Remote settings. So all this is doing, all this screen is doing, is aside from device manager, which I'm going to minimize, and we'll come back to in a second, it's taking me to different tabs on another screen. So if I click on change settings here, it takes me to computer name. Notice hardware advanced remote. If I click on remote settings, computer name, hardware advanced, no, I'm on remote. So it's another way into another interface that we already have, except again with the addition of device manager. I have something unknown plugged into the server. It's a virtual server, so I don't know. I haven't troubleshot it at all. I don't know if I want to go into too much other detail. I mean, we can talk about which of these is for. Obviously, like we'd said, name and domain membership can be changed here. Hardware, you can open your device manager or determine if Windows wants to automatically download software for devices you plug in. Advanced, each of these has a large number of its own settings. If I go into performance, this is what I get to handle. I can handle visual effects. I can go into advanced, and I can change virtual memory. We have not talked about virtual memory. I don't know if we really need to. I don't know if we want to go to that level of depth. We do at some point, I think.
Not at this point.
But this is it. Right-click on my computer, properties, and this brings this up. Now we'll look at this really quick in 2012, just for consistency's sake. Computer, same thing. You can do it in the start menu, right on computer, properties. Same idea.
Bringing up the same screen.
Yep.
It shows you some consistency, even though some of the UI has changed.
Mm-hmm.
There's some underlying consistency between the operating systems.
Indeed.
Okay, next we will talk about work groups and domains. Work groups are for peer-to-peer systems. And so earlier we talked about peer-to-peer is decentralized administration. Domains are centralized administration. So in a peer-to-peer network or a work group, every machine that a user is going to work on, they need a user account on that machine. So if you have 5 machines, you need 5 accounts on 5 different machines. And then you will need permissions on each of those machines. And that's really what we're referring to when we talk about distributed management. So you have to manage each one of those individually. That's fine in smaller networks. You have, up to 10, maybe even 15 machines that you're administrating in a decentralized fashion or a distributed fashion. But it starts to break down, it starts to get unwieldy. You get somebody new coming in, now you have to add that new account to each machine. Again, it gets unwieldy, but in a small office, work group can work just fine. Versus in a domain, now you're talking about a centralized server that holds accounts centrally. So now you create a single user account that can be used anywhere. So now accessing any of those systems, you can use that one centralized account, and that's one of the benefits, one of many benefits of domain structures. A domain is a logical unit in the Active Directory domain services.
Which we'll get to later.
Which we'll get to later. And again, the main difference, work group, decentralized model, domain system centralized model. Remote assistance and remote desktop. So this is the ability to access a computer from a separate system. So you're accessing the computer remotely. You can use the mouse and keyboard on your remote system, and it will appear to be running on the remote system. And then you can use programs and access your configuration tools on the remote systems. You've noticed as Christopher's done some of his demos, up on the top up here, you'll see like a little name bar, little name. And so the next time Christopher does a demo, he'll show that to you. That indicates a remote desktop session. IP address settings. Now, this is a single slide about address settings. In the networking fundamentals course, we spent quite a bit of time.
There are days and days and days on just IP alone.
Yes, yeah. The hard and fast is an IP address is a unique identifier for a device on the network. Devices on the network need to intercommunicate with each other. The IP address is that unique identifier for a system. The IP address is a unique identifier. A default gateway, there is your local network and remote networks. Default gateway says, if it's not on my local network, send it to the default gateway, and then the default gateway will route it appropriately. And then finally, there's a DNS server, domain name system server. A DNS server is, so we typically, as we use the computers, use names, www.microsoft.com. So we use names or server, Windows Serve 2012-file serve or whatever. Servers use IP addresses, MAC addresses. They use more address or numeric type systems. So DNS is the system that converts a TCP/IP name, www.microsoft.com, to whatever IP address is associated to that.
Which is what your computer actually needs to find it.
Correct. Correct.
Or to get to it, not to find it.
To get to it.
Contact
it.
To
access it.
Yes.
Correct. And to request services from the server.
Yep.
And then finally, a DHCP server, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. You can either configure all of this manually on a system, which again on a small scale isn't that big of a deal, but as you start to talk about 20, 100, 1,000 computers on the network, configuring all of those manually becomes unwieldy. Now you're looking at using a system like DHCP to automatically send out and assign addresses. So as a server or as not a server typically, but as a client boots up on the network, it requests an IP address. The DHCP system is the one that associates an IP address to it.
We're actually going to cover that in great detail as well later.
Are we really?
There's another module with some DNS and some DHCP
nice
discussions.
That's exciting. Yep. And if you want to dig into that more, networking fundamentals.
Absolutely.
And now we have a demo on networking, excitingly enough.
That's all it says, just networking?
Networking. Network and sharing center, IPv4, IPv6,
yep.
and proxy settings.
Perfect. So, jump back to this. Once again, we're back on my 2008 server. Network and sharing center is the first thing he mentioned. 2 ways to get to it. I can do start and control panel. 3 ways, actually, and I get network and sharing center. Or I can close that. And I can do start and network. If I open it, this is not network and sharing center. This is network clients, but you notice right here, network and sharing center. Or, just because we like showing you all of the different ways, right-click on your network connection, open network and sharing center.
So multiple ways to get to the same.
Yep. And this has a bunch of different information on this one slide. You see your computer, you see what it's connected to, and you see what that is connected to on the other end, or rather if it is or is not connected to the internet. We're going to look at IP4 and IP6 settings. We have to do that at the adapter level. So we go into these adapters. Notice virtual machine, virtual machine. This is a virtual machine. It has virtual network cards. Maybe. Or it's going to freeze.
See, which just goes to show when you're working with networking and computers, it's always exciting. You never...
Exciting is one word.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting.
Oh, the connection's been lost. All right, let me jump to another one.
Okay, really quick. If we go back onto Christopher's monitor.
I'm on my 2012 server, so this one should come up and we can continue.
And you go up to the top to bring down, there we go. So those right there represent remote desktop sessions.
Yep, so I'm remoted into one computer and then from there remoted into another. Change adapter settings, this one should actually work. Right click, properties. This is where you're going to find IP4 and IP6. Right here. You'll notice this isn't actually connected to any of those. And that's because this network adapter is not available for the machine I'm using to use. I have not told Hyper-V to use this one. Now I can't open that one up, unfortunately, because of that. So local server, properties, scroll down, and IPv4. IP address, subnet mask, and gateway. Again, networking course. We're not going to go over those here today. DNS servers.
One thing to note is those have been assigned manually as opposed to assigned using a DHCP server.
Yep.
And typically, you would assign server IP address information manually and enable your clients to perform that automatically.
Indeed. IP6 is in the same place. There are fewer settings. IP6 is, while seemingly more complicated, actually much simpler from an administration standpoint. And proxy settings, we're going to go off into the weeds. It's nothing to do with network and sharing or network anything. It is only to do with, I mean, it has to do with your internet connection, but the settings are not managed there. I don't know if everybody's following where I went. I opened up Internet Explorer. I went to Tools, or the settings icon up here. Internet Options. Went into Internet Options, the Connections tab. On the Connections tab, there's a LAN Settings button. Proxy.
There you go.
I actually have a friend of mine who just last week brought me her computer because she'd complained to me it didn't work, it didn't get on the internet anymore, it was slow, all sorts of problems. It's about 8 years old. The computer was actually in fine shape. I upgraded it and I unchecked the use a proxy server box because somehow that had gotten checked and it was preventing her connecting to anything on the internet. So something to check if your computers mysteriously have connectivity issues. I think that's it for demos.
That's it. So after networking, we'll talk about device drivers. So we've talked about the motherboard. We've talked about network cards, video cards, cards that provide other functionality in your system. For the operating system to understand how to use this hardware, you need a device driver, and a device driver is basically an interpreter for the system. So if we go back to the screen, if you look here at this screenshot, you see the kernel here, and this is the operating system. The I/O manager, input/output, the plug-and-play manager, the power manager. Up here, you have your applications running. You have the hardware abstraction layer. That's where the OS kernel runs. And then your device drivers tell these upper systems how to integrate with the hardware.
The platform devices.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. It's pretty slick. Hardware resources. So to ensure that devices on your system can be addressed, they need to be uniquely identified. They're uniquely identified using things like an IRQ.
Well, this is one of those, if we can go back to the slide, this is definitely an important slide, the IRQ, DMA channels, IO port addresses. I can honestly say, given what you've mentioned, that these are ways to address hardware so that that hardware can talk to the software without conflicts. It's very similar to, I guess, the time slicing we talked about with a processor. But these days, it's pretty much all automatic.
Correct.
I remember having to change IRQ settings back in, the late 90s.
Yeah, well,
Modems were a nightmare.
You had to manually configure it on the card. Then when
jumpers.
with jumpers, you had to manually set the jumper on the card. Then when you installed the device driver, there was normally an INI file that you would have to go into and edit to associate. This is the IRQ. This is the DMA channel. This is the I/O
Then you
port
had to set
address.
it all in Windows.
Yes. Well, and then you had to ensure that your different hardware didn't conflict with each other.
Yeah. Oh, what fun those days were.
It's very interesting. To be honest, this isn't anything you'll deal with on a day-to-day basis.
I feel like one of those, back when I was a kid.
Yeah. School uphill both ways.
Back when I was new to IT.
Yep.
I had to do all this stuff by hand. It is, these days, yeah, it's...
You don't, but real quick, the IRQ is the interrupt request. So as a device wants processing time, it flags its IRQ. DMA channels, direct memory access, that enables the processor to speak directly to the device. The I/O addresses, that's basically the shelf where as the processor and the device work and they have information to share, they'll put it in that I/O port address. And then memory address ranges is the address range that that card can use. But luckily nowadays, we have plug and play. Ta-da!
We don't have to manage any of this anymore.
Yep, so now all of that is done automatically.
Yep, I can't remember the last time I actually had to configure an IRQ on purpose.
Agreed. Initially, when this first came out, you referred to plug and pray because you would hope it worked.
It's back in the Windows 95, 98 days.
Yes. Now it just works.
Mm-hmm. It does.
So this is something that has come a long way, that it's helpful to understand that underlying technology, but nowadays it's taken care of for you.
Yep.
Signed drivers. So we've talked about device drivers being the translator that enables hardware to access or software to access a hardware device. Mm-hmm. Signed drivers are a verification of the driver that it comes from a legitimate source, that it's not malware, it's not a virus, it's not a problem, it's been tested a certain amount, hopefully. So now the driver, it's a level of certification.
And it's preventing somebody who can take the original manufacturer's driver that is legitimate, add code to it if they're able to deconstruct it and then recompile it after they've made changes to it, and send it back out as if it does belong to that original publisher. Signed drivers, they're not going to maintain being signed if that content has been changed. Those certificates will be invalid. So it is a nice security feature for preventing your system from being made unstable by drivers that may be legitimate but not written well, not that ever happens, or are just illegitimate for any one of 100 reasons to begin with.
Right. And then all drivers running on a 64-bit system must be signed.
Mm-hmm. It's a new Windows requirement.
Device manager. So we've talked about devices. We've talked about the device manager. Oh, now we're talking about device manager. We've talked about the hardware. We've talked about device drivers that allow the translation. Device manager is the tool to be used to manage the hardware and the device driver.
All of this stuff, everything. And I'm guessing.
Guess what?
How did I know?
Demo time.
All right. So we're in 2012. I'll go ahead and leave this 2012 for the sake of what we're doing. That's perfectly fine. Device Manager, another one of those things I have multiple ways to get to. We already saw this. Right-click, Properties. Device Manager. That's probably the fastest. The way that I used to do it, and I'll show you the cumbersome process, I would go into Control Panel. Eventually. Oh, it's just give me System because it's technically a Control Panel item. Cheaters. So Control Panel, and then you'd have to change this to small icons, and then you'd have to see there's no computer management in here, so you have to go to Administrative Tools. And then when this opens, you go to Computer Management, which is right here, and then you open this, and then in Computer Management, and yes, this used to be how I did this all the time.
Do you bill by the hour?
This is when I was internal. This was before I was consulting. I actually tried to be faster when I was consulting. And then Device Manager is in here. A shortcut that I use now, because I don't actually use right-click Properties Device Manager, I do this. This is the control panel computer management console. I kind of go back and forth between mouse and keyboard these days, so I type a fair number of things in the online and device manager. Again, all of my devices are here. I could right-click and disable. You'd see the black arrow, but I'd lose connectivity to something, so we're going to not do that. Do I have a keyboard I can? No. I'm trying to figure out if there's something I can disable without breaking something, but I don't think there is. There's no A drive on this thing, so I've got nothing. Oh. Disable. Who needs a floppy disk drive? There you go. Down arrow.
Done.
That's it. That's the device manager. It's what it does. You can use this to manage these devices' properties, driver, and information. This is actually kind of a handy screen. Details and events. You can, in some cases, actually modify. Let's re-enable this. And once that's done, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find one that I can actually modify that level of detail on. So for now, device manager. What was the other demo?
The next one actually is administrative tools, which you've been talking about, computer management, which we've discussed.
I'll show this one particularly. So in control panel, there's a subset called administrative tools. You'll notice there are AD tools in here. There are certificate authority tools in here. There are additional tools for the services the server is providing in the administrative tools folder inside of control panel. The reason I actually like and know as much as I do about administrative tools is because in here you've got the Windows Firewall. This is side conversation from the networking course. Here you've got the Windows Firewall. Here you got the Windows Firewall with advanced security. Much more configurable, much more granular, terrific. So that's administrative tools.
Finally, server core. We've talked about, and you've actually demoed.
I did. I showed off server core. So module 1, if you want to see that again, jump back to module 1 and look at that demo.
We've talked about the fact that Windows Server comes with a GUI, graphical user interface, windows for you to move around in. That GUI comes with a bit of overhead. So if you have a server with specific functionality that you don't want the graphical user interface overhead on, you want it to be a strict workhorse, you want it to perform a specific function, you can install server core.
I have something I do want to show in server core, so if we want to jump over here real quick. I'm still in the same box I was in earlier, but new to server 2012, I believe R2, PowerShell in server core. Right from the same console.
Right from command line.
Just PowerShell. And the joy is I now have access to my normal command line tools through PowerShell, plus the PowerShell commandlets that manage this. So
there's a lot of power in there. Again, only certain role services work with server core, so you need to ensure that the role services that you want function appropriately in that environment. But there's a lot of power using the PowerShell environment. And if you know it and become familiar with it, you can do a lot.
Then see, the funny thing is I used to say, if you learn it and you know it and you understand it, you're going to be an outstanding IT administrator. These days, unfortunately, the line is more than you're going to be able to do your job normally because PowerShell is becoming the norm. You're going to have to know PowerShell. So at some point after this course, after maybe the MCSA series courses, jump into some PowerShell.
I don't know how this happened.
Are we at the end?
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome.
I feel sad.
I feel surprised.
Caught off guard. I'm a little hurt.
I'm a little annoyed because, once again, I forgot to edit the slide, and it's got the 98366 networking stuff on it. So I'm glad he switched off it real quick, and then go back and look at the next step slide from the last course. 98-365. Windows Server Administration Fundamentals. There's a book. There's an exam. There are instructor-led courses from us here at Microsoft that you can go and take, sit down with an instructor, peers, get your hands dirty. I think that's all we got until the next one.
We have a blue slide with logo stuff.
They're going to change it.
The end.
They don't like our end slides, so they're going to make them different.
They're making them different. They're changing. Times are a-changing.
They are. So we'll see you in the next module.
Come back. Can't believe it's done.